Hi, I'm John F. Allen. And I'm R.J. Sullivan. And we're the Two Towers.
Yeah.
Right. But here's the thing, RJ, about that I wanted to make sure that we definitely touched upon is the fact that he has sex, and this dude has unprotected sex with all these women,
Right.
Keisha included. So, what's to say in season 4 she doesn't turn up pregnant? Now he's got 5 baby mamas, and he just got married and said that he wasn't going to cheat on her. And oh boy, that's just a whole other. I'm waiting for it to happen. My
Sure.
wife and I were sitting there watching the show, and we like, boy, I bet you that's what's going to happen in season 4. So, since this is spoiler territory, we would love to hear what you think about that, because that was the first thing that came to my mind. When this all went down. So
Yeah. What I found interesting about that is the way she turned it back on him, the chef lady. I mean, she was like, yeah, we did what we did, but I'm done and I'm moving on and we're in business, but what happened there has nothing to do with this. And he's the one who's like freaking out about that. I think,
right.
I don't know if he was looking for a way to get out of his current relationship or what he thought might happen, but it was interesting to watch her just turn so cold and be like, hey, that was a fling. We're done with that. Let's move on. If you can't handle it, let me know. And he had a hard time with that. That was kind of interesting, I thought. Kind of the reversal from how a lot of that stuff is kind of portrayed. But you talked, I mean, we could go into so many different things about it, but I definitely want to cover the major plot twist, I think, of the third season, which is what happens to Kaisha and how all of that plays out. Kaisha is Kevin's little sister. John talked about how she's kind of.
Actually, she's his older sister.
Oh, did I say younger? Yes, older sister.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so she's getting ready to go to college, and she's the track star, and she's got a lot of things going on, but you also know she's kind of sneaking around and doing some things, but they're not really clear the extent of a lot of that until much later. I believe it was it the end of season 2 where she's at the bus stop and then she just vanishes and that's where they leave it? Oh, it was either that or the first episode of season 3. I don't remember.
I think that was that was in the first or second episode of season 3, because the first episode of season 3 is the wedding. She's running to get to the wedding, and
that's right.
Mom and Dre's wedding and whatnot. And then that's when the kids are in the kitchen sipping wine when they, really shouldn't be, which, kids usually do. I'm guilty. When I was a kid. Yep. So, but yeah, well, let's go back to, like I mentioned before, and then you can take it from here. I had mentioned before that Keisha was sneaking out, and she ended up having a sexual relationship with her track coach in her high school. Now, Keisha's all of 17, 18 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her track coach is in his early 30s, more than likely, early to mid 30s. So that when I was saying that was nasty, that's exactly what I mean. First of all, it didn't even matter. He's in a position of authority over her. It didn't even matter if he was like 19 himself, 18 himself. It doesn't matter. That was gross. But then just the idea that he was that much older than her and he knew what he was doing was wrong. Plus, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was married.
I believe so.
Yeah. So, it was just double nasty. But Keisha was basically doing what a lot of teenagers do, rebelling and being wild and trying to, grow up too fast, especially in inner city neighborhoods. That happens a lot. And so people were kind of expecting, her friends were kind of expecting this behavior out of her. And then I'll let you go from here, RJ.
Yeah, so for several episodes, you don't know if she's been murdered or kidnapped or what happened.
Mhm.
She's at the bus stop, and then the bus pulls up and she's gone. And then I think they leave that for like an episode or two before the mom finally comes around. Have we seen her in a while? What's happening? And they come to realize that something terrible must have happened to her, and the police, they've got nothing to say except, oh, if she doesn't show up in a week, she's probably been murdered, and all these terrible things going on. And the show takes a while before they finally come back to tell you what happened to her, and she's been abducted.
Mhm.
But the franticness of her mom trying to get on from day to day, and her new bride was not very sympathetic or kind a lot of the time, I didn't think. But I did like how so much of the community was backing her and trying to help her in so many ways, even though there were people who thought there was talk that she kind of had it coming. There was so much going in there, so much to unpack. Watching that play out, and then when you find out she's actually abducted, and then how close people come to finding her, how close she comes to escaping a couple times. That was the night I think I watched 3 hours worth, which was 3 episodes in a row, because I am sticking to this until I find out how this is going to resolve. And I did watch it until Ronnie is the one who actually figures out what's going on, who goes in there and plays a big part in finally getting her out of there. And then I'm talking about favorite moments that really touched me, but the entire next couple episodes, which deal so much with the aftermath of what happened and how that traumatizes someone, and watching someone trying to get back to their normal life and just not being able to because of what's recently happened to them. And the show did not back away from any of that. This is something that's still, I'm sure, going to continue into season 4. And to me, what was so interesting was the meticulous detail. It seemed like the writers had something they really wanted to talk about, that they were very passionate about, to get out about, the trauma and the horror of these kinds of things. And I went through so many emotions on that particular storyline, because it did feel like it was being protracted. I wanted her to get out of there. I wanted her to be found. I kept thinking she was going to get murdered. First I thought she was murdered, which was upsetting. And then nobody wanted to do anything about it. And then finally someone did, but they weren't acting very quickly. And then they got her, but she'd had all kinds of horrible things having happened to her in the meantime. And, his abductor, or her abductor, got exactly what he had. That was probably the greatest crowbar beating ever on television. But in a way, it kind of felt like a sidetrack of the rest of the show, but it was so extremely well done and so meticulous in what it portrayed and how it portrayed it. It was definitely one of the highlights of the entire series for me. I was wondering what your thoughts were as you watched that unfold.
Well, it was very intense, and Keisha was a favorite character of mine, because of the dynamic. You just were like, what is this girl going to be up to now? And, but you were rooting for her to turn a corner and get that scholarship and do, something good, and something good come to her life. And I have to say that when she is abducted, it's like, oh my God, my heart dropped. What is going to happen to poor Keisha? Is she going to be okay? Is she going to be murdered? Are they going to find her? And they found the body of a young woman, and they thought it was her. And they ended up it ended up not being her because Keisha's mother's wife, Dre, had spotted the fact that Keisha had gotten a tattoo
Right.
that the mother didn't know anything about, and she didn't say anything because she's trying to connect with the kids. Now, I will speak on something that you said about Dre not being kind to Nina with regards to the fact that Keisha had been abducted or whatnot. I can kind of see where you were coming from with that. I don't think it was necessarily all one-sided, though, because I have to say that Dre was trying to be a constant for the kids, but she was getting pushback. Keisha didn't particularly like Dre. She felt like, well, who are you and why are you in here? You're not going to replace my father. It was that kind of situation. Kevin was more okay. I'm going to roll with the punches here type scenario. But a lot of times, Nina, Kevin, and Keisha's mother, during the time that she was had been abducted, after the time she had been abducted, made it a point to take jabs at Dre. And this isn't your daughter, it was
Sure.
it wasn't, she wasn't kind to Dre either. I mean, there were times when Dre was a lot less empathic than she should have been, but there were also times when Nina was downright nasty to her when she was trying to be there for her. So I see that where you were coming from, but I also thought it was important to mention how Nina was reacting in all of this.
Yeah, I think the act that I think kind of ticked me off was when she wanted to pack up the room.
Yes.
Or the mother was ready.
Yes. And that was definitely that's not, you didn't read the room well, and you didn't take into consideration your wife's feelings in making that suggestion for sure. Right. I think that, the thing is that we get to see the family dynamics here, and it's not your traditional setting, it's not your traditional family, but you see them come together as a family. You see them start to gel. You see them start to, the kids start to come around to Dre, and you realize that Dre actually cares. She's very protective of Nina and those kids, to a point where, she's about ready to get with you streets. If you ever heard the saying, take my earrings off, give me some Vaseline, that is, she's ready to rumble. And right. I have to give her credit for that. But it was a very harrowing experience watching the show, and it kept you on the edge of your seat where Keisha was concerned when you found out that she had been abducted and was was being held captive by this man who is an older man, probably even older than the coach, I would think, probably late 30s,
seemed to be
40s, and he was raping her repeatedly, forcing her to not only be chained to a bed in a basement, but, continuously having sex with her against her will. And it was just horrible. It was hard to watch. It made you feel, or it made me feel like, oh my God, because I have a daughter, who's, 27, and I couldn't imagine her going through something like that with somebody, I just couldn't. And so it puts that into perspective where that's concerned. And, you're trying to, be hopeful and thinking, Lord, let her get out of there. And there's a couple times she came close to getting out of there, but then she ended up getting captured and drawn right back in. And all the while, Ronnie is on his redemption arc, and this is the very apex of his redemption arc. This is where he was like, I've caused people pain, and this family's going through pain because Keisha is missing, and I'm going to do what I can to find her. If no one else is going to do anything, I'm here on these streets. I'm going to use what I have to find this girl and bring her home. And that became his mission. Over the course of this time, Ronnie was, I guess he was introduced to faith that he had lost, and it was a religious faith. First, it was Islam through Common's character Rafiq, who Ronnie had been beat up, and it came to a situation where he had sought refuge, and then there was Rafiq that was helping him, and that didn't stick. Then he ended up getting beat up another time, and then Papa's father, who was the minister, came to embrace Ronnie and set him on a path towards his redemption as well by showing him the Christian religion. And so with Christianity, he was baptized and he had his faith renewed, and this was part of what was setting him up to move beyond his past. Now, here's the thing. You have a lot of people who still resented Ronnie and were mistrusting with good reason. And you had those friends of Coogie. You remember when we were first starting to talk about Coogie, and I said that this kid was a good kid. He wasn't a gang banger, but the gang people actually loved and respected this kid. They was not having any of this Ronnie's redemption shit. They were like, yeah, you gonna get yours. And that was the sentiment on the streets where Ronnie was concerned. Even though he took it, he was like, yeah, I get why you mad at me. I'm mad at me. And I can't be mad that you're mad at me, but I'm gonna still keep doing what I need to do for what I need to do. And so Ronnie ends up doggedly pursuing leads and coming to Dre and working with her to try and find Keisha, and he does.
Yeah, and an important point is that Kevin and Ronnie had a history. So
yes,
he was putting himself out there for people who might resent him even being involved at all.
Right.
So,
right. And it was when Keisha was rescued, it was Ronnie who rescued her. And going back to the crowbar beating, basically, Ronnie had used a crowbar to break into the house where Keisha was being held. And then the guy that was holding her captive came back, and there was a tussle, and he started getting the better of Ronnie. And Keisha took that opportunity to take the crowbar, which had been knocked out of Ronnie's hands, and beat the man to death, which there was pent-up aggression for what she had been through. There was protecting herself. There was a whole lot of emotion that went into this ass beating that this man received, and deservedly so. And so he ends up being taken out on a stretcher, and Ronnie and Keisha are there, and they face each other. And then Keisha's like, wow, I owe you my life. Thanks, bro. And then he's like, that's okay, because, I needed to do something good with my life, and I'm glad I was able to rescue you, to help you. And that's where it was. It was a genuine connection between two humans, and it was something that deepened even after she had gotten home, because what happened with that is that Keisha was traumatized, obviously, from being held captive for months, and being raped. That would be a traumatic experience for anyone, but, this was compounded by the fact that she had almost given up hope and had thought about, taking her own life to escape this situation. So this was a situation where she had, gotten that far down the rabbit hole. She had reached almost basically rock bottom right before she was rescued. And her mother and Dre and Kevin were losing hope. They gotten to the point where they were just they didn't, they didn't know what else to do. It had been so long. Should they, let her go? And the mother was still holding on. So was Kevin, but Dre was, and that's where we go back to what RJ was saying. Dre was like suggesting packing up the room because she was so hurt by seeing her wife be tortured like that. And I get where she was coming from. She just didn't read how to do this well, or how to say this, and that's where it blew up, and it caused a lot of problems, a rift between Nina and Dre that almost ended their relationship. And so you've got that. But then Keisha comes back home. Now Keisha has to try and reintegrate with everyone, dealing with all the trauma that she suffered and the aftermath, and then realize that things in her life had changed completely because everyone had thought that she died or wasn't coming back.
Right. But, when all was said and done, what I liked was it ends on a note of optimism that they are a family. They're going to find their way through it. They're going to find their way back to some kind of normality. There's a lot of really neat, positive things that happen in this show. I mean, I feel like there are so many other storylines we could get into. I just want to touch upon the character Maisha, but I love that character. I love her interaction with the three middle schoolers, and I love the way that whole thing played out. She's a lot of fun. I have actually known I've known some people who have been stuck in her situation, which is, she is the older of several children, and then when the mom has to go off to work, someone has to watch the kids, and she gets stuck having to watch all the rest of the kids. And as a result, she doesn't get to go to school every day, and she has to have someone grab her homework or she misses out. And so she's constantly falling behind, and she has a very warped idea of what responsibility is. And that's just something that's Kevin kind of finds out over time and does what he can to help her after initially not sure what to make of her. And then it was neat. It was again, some of the more optimistic sides of this show, some of the more heartwarming sides of the show is how all of that resolves and plays out. She ends up kind of becoming a part of the crew after a while, and she was one of my favorite characters that had a nice little story arc that it's still going at this time. And,
right,
nice to see what they're going to do with her.
Right, and it's of note to mention the fact that while she at first was a love interest for Kevin, she ends up being a love interest for Papa, and Papa and her have a relationship now.
Yes, it's very sweet.
Right, and so you have to put that into consideration. But also worth mentioning in the whole Keisha scenario is that not only does she have to deal with all the trauma and everything else, the aftermath, the fact that she was gone and her scholarship went to someone else, and so now she's got to find another way to end up going to college. And, that was something that she had really been looking forward to and put the work in for. And that's derailed. Her friends, who were supposed to be her friends, didn't have anything constructive to say and ended up, betraying her in ways while she was gone. And one of the things that she has to face is that she's pregnant by her captor.
Yeah, that's so rough. Wow. Yeah, that that was that's tough news. Of course, I know we're talking about a drama, but I mean that's how involving it is. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Now what? There's no good choices there. So that's something that's gonna play out in season 4. I'm really anxious to see how it's handled. I mean, this entire storyline is being handled so delicately, and so I feel like there's a drive there by the showrunners to make a statement, and I don't think I'm curious to see where it's all going to go and see where they're taking this particular storyline.
Yes, most definitely. And of note for that is that Keisha wrestled with what to do, to have an abortion or to have the
Right.
baby, and at the end of the season decided that she was going to keep the baby, and that was something that didn't sit really well with Kevin, even though it's not his decision, but him being the brother trying to look out for the family or whatnot, and knowing what he had done to her or whatnot, he, and being as young as he is and not a woman, could not quite wrap his head around why she would want to keep the child. But it was an interesting thing that he was so vehement about, her not keeping the child, and the fact that she had decided to do so, and how that's going to play out in season 4. That's an interesting thing. But going back to Kevin, it's important, I think, to mention that when Kevin ended up being sent to the school, the advanced school, his friend Jake ended up going to that school too, because when Jake's brother Reg was murdered by Duda, who is the crook that's wanting to take over the gangs and everything, and is also running for mayor, he wanted to use him as a prop. So he took Jake and adopted him, and, was trying to raise him as his son and take him to functions and all this kind of stuff, so that he can seem like he is a invested member of society. And look, I've got this young kid that I'm sending to this private school and doing, giving him a better life and all this kind of stuff, which is just window dressing. And, Jake's not stupid. He knows what's going on. Duda has a pizza restaurant that he uses to launder his dirty money through. And all 3 of the boys, Kevin, Jake, and Papa, have after school weekend jobs there in the restaurant, in the pizza restaurant. This to notice things that have happened. And so Duda's character becomes more integrated as he's running for mayor. And he has a opponent in Camille Holloway, who is portrayed by Lena Waithe, who is the series creator and writer for The Chi. And they're running against each other, and there's an opportunity for dirt to be dug up on Duda that would not only ensure that Camille would win the the election, but also land Duda in jail, in prison. And this was given to Jake, who ended up giving it to his other brother, who is fighting for custody of him. And that's Trig, and Trig's girlfriend, who is trans. And they are fighting to make a home for Jake and raise him themselves. But they need a way to fight Duda. And so they're thinking, we get this information, which Jake got out of Duda's safe, to give to the opponent, and this will kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But Camille, the opponent, was not having it. She didn't want to use that to win. She wanted to win fair and square, even though Duda was paying money to Papa's father, the minister, on the side. Also, so was Camille. They were both paying Papa's father money, for him to sponsor one of them or whatnot. And it all came down to one of the wealthier Black citizens in the area who decided to support Duda. And that ended up being Gemma, played by Judea Brown. And Gemma is Kevin's girlfriend, who he meets at the advanced school. And she's very pro-Black, very political and whatnot. So you end up, having her as a strong voice in Kevin's head, and he also gets into a relationship with her, and they end up, finding each other in a romantic way. And there's so much to unpack here. I mean, this show has a lot. It offers a lot. It's just interesting to add one more character we did not touch upon was Hannibal, who's Brandon's cousin, who has a marijuana business.
Yeah.
And he is portrayed by Chris Lee, who the actor also plays on the CW show Legacies, which is a spinoff of Vampire Diaries. So to our listeners, check that out. I like Legacies. I think it's a pretty good show. It's basically the X-Men meets vampires, werewolves, and witches. Yeah, it's that. So anyway, I liked his character. He ends up helping to finance Emmett's restaurant. So there's a lot of interconnection between all of these characters. And there's a lot more that we could talk about, but due to time restraints, we aren't going to be able to do so. There are two other characters I will introduce because they are notable actors. That is Doodah's estranged wife, Rosalind Perry, who's portrayed by Candy Burris. Little Ray O'Howery, who is actually from Chicago. In real life, he plays Zeke Remnick, who is the person who owns the building where Sonny's restaurant is, and ends up breaking the lease with Sonny to actually start the lease with Emmett. And
yeah. That was a strange plot twist. But you know what you've been kind of hinting at that probably needs to be mentioned. There's a whole cast of well-off, powerful characters who really don't have much of a presence, but you kind of find out by the time you get to season 3, they're controlling a lot of the things in the background, which I found very interesting, and are very much aware of how they can do that and what they can do. So there are more dynamics here than you think there are when you first get into the program. But yeah, we've definitely covered a lot. We could cover a lot more, but I think they know we kind of like it, John.
Yeah, I think they got the idea, and I think that when season 4 comes out, and we will definitely be up on reviewing these as the seasons come out moving forward, because this has become a favorite for us here, and I think that I can't wait. I just can't wait until the new season comes out. I'm really stoked about it.
It's going to be fun. Do we have any idea if they filmed any of season 4, or is this something kind of on hiatus?
No, they haven't filmed it yet. With again, it's the COVID.
Yeah, so it'll be a while.
Yeah,
so there you go.
It'll be a minute. But I hope that this episode has entertained everyone. I definitely, on behalf of both of us, want to encourage you to go check out The Chi if you have not. It's definitely more than well worth your time to do so. And we appreciate all of our listeners. We want to thank you. We want to encourage you to please give us a thumbs up if you like the show, and to comment. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know what you think. Did you enjoy The Chi? And if so, why? Who are your favorite characters? And what do you expect for them to tackle in season 4? What are you looking forward to? And, we want to hear from you guys. You're the reason why we do this. And know that we are available on YouTube. We're available on Spotify, so you can take us with you when you're on the go and listen to us at your leisure. And just in case you're wanting to get a little bit more insight into what I'm doing with my writing and other projects that I have going on, you can check me out at johnfallenauthor.com. And where can they find you, RJ?
I'm at rjsullivanfiction.com.
All right. So that wraps up this episode of the Two Towers Talk Show. Thanks again so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you. And until next time, Bye. The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by OG Nerds, a new social media community dedicated to nerds of a certain age, 40 and over, although all are welcome. Members are encouraged to share articles and links on their favorite nerdy topics such as animation, anime, art, books, writing, comics, manga, movies, music, sports, tech, science, TV, video games, RPGs, and more. Be sure to visit them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by Showtime Cinema in Mooresville, Indiana. Their friendly staff is always willing to go the extra mile to make your movie-going experience an enjoyable and memorable one. Enjoy the comfort of their new cushioned seating in their spacious auditoriums, and while you're there, be sure to stop by the concession stand and purchase some popcorn where real butter topping is an option. They're located at 300 South Bridge Street in Mooresville, Indiana. We hope to see you at the movies.